Hi, everyone. My name is Joel Ivany. Welcome to another edition of In the Director's Chair. I want to mention first off that Against the Grain Theater is on Treaty 13, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And now it is home to many peoples of many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, as well as us, and we're grateful to be able to be on this land making art and being able to have conversations. My guest tonight is a wonderful person and soprano and conductor. Her name is Barbara Hannigan. She's Canadian, dominating the opera scene. We're going to talk singing, career, opera, and when we can next hear her, hopefully sing in Canada. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Joel. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm in the midst of preparing a new project, which is the opera La Voix Humaine by Poulenc, and it's a new. I was going to say a new production. I don't even know what to call it. I'm going to sing and conduct the piece at the same time, and it's made for the concert hall, and it involves live and pre-recorded film and video of me. And it's a real adventure. It opens at the beginning of January, and I have co-producers with 4 different orchestras that I'll present it with. And so I'm very excited. I'm like, it's interesting because when everything stopped, slowly my adrenaline started to kind of seep away, and now it's like it's coming back into my system. And I was practicing today, and I felt I was alone here in Bretagne, and I felt the urgency while I was practicing that I don't feel very often, since March. So it was a good feeling. I was like, oh, I remember that. I know that. That's good. That's what makes me work, because I see the deadline.
Yeah, it must be good to kind of not reimagine, but go back to that feeling, because I think for everyone kind of stopped and kind of they baked bread, they did new things, and that feeling of, oh yeah, this is what it was like to perform, and to that adrenaline.
Yeah, like for me, from March until July, I wasn't performing, but I was making a lot of videos. I made a film. I made videos as kind of lots of talks and promotions, and I had my CD come out. And then I made several films for different situations. And I was doing a lot of masterclasses. So I had like the energy going. But then once July started, then I had some concerts again as conductor. And then I was like, oh, adrenaline. Okay. But it was few and far between, compared to my normal schedule. So I've been, I think I was in Sweden at the end of September, and then I had a concert in October in France, and then in 6 concerts in Germany, and then just last Sunday, another concert in France. So it hasn't been as crazy as usual, which is good for me.
Yeah, that is good. I think like all of us felt like in various capacities, I don't want to say it was on an untenable path, but it was just like you want to do because that's what you feel that you are. And I guess the last 7 months has been really challenging and really, I guess, appreciative. Would that be like for the work that is there, and just this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting because as artists, we identify perhaps more than some other workers with what we do so deeply that it is who we are. And so when the ability to practice that is gone, I think there have been a lot of questions, good questions, and a lot of kind of identity crisis for different artists. I've certainly noticed that, as I've had many, many conversations in the last while, partly because I created a new initiative, and it led to like conversations with about 80 different conductors and solos and so on. So it was really interesting because you could see that kind of psychological questioning and identity crisis, but also good identity crisis, because, it's good to question, who am I when I don't sing? who am I when I don't perform? If I still sing, but I don't perform, you know, who am I, a conductor? You know, the other part of me, the conductor. I mean, you don't sit at home and practice conducting very much. You really need to do that with the orchestra. I mean, you study scores, but you don't actually practice transitions until you're in front of the band, you know? And so that's been really interesting, just fascinating. And yeah, motivation.
Yeah, I was thinking, because like for young artists as well, even just this singing with an orchestra, I want to say pre-pandemic was a challenge in North America anyways, like for a young singer to sing in front of a full orchestra, you need that to kind of feel the confidence, what goes on, the balance. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a challenge going forward for them to get that opportunity. Yeah, we're in a really tricky moment, I think, for conductors, for singers, for musicians. Yeah,
there's a lot less chances. And one of the things a lot of younger singers were saying to me, or younger performers were saying, was, you know, nobody's asking us. If a concert's going to happen all of a sudden, they're not going to call us. They're going to call the famous people, and they're going to call all the same famous people all the time to headline, you know, to try and bring the audiences back. But actually, I created this initiative that I mentioned, which is called Momentum. And it actually challenges the leading conductors and soloists to bring a younger artist onto their main stage events with them now. And it's happening. It's happening, like people are doing it, which is great. Natalie Dessay and Sabine Devier and Simon Rattle and all kinds of people are doing it. So it's wonderful, because that's the only way they're going to get on stage at the moment, you know, the younger people.
For you to do that and lead, that's amazing. Is there a website for this?
Oh yeah. Okay. There's everything. It's www.momentum-now.com, and there's Instagram, and there's Facebook, and yeah, it's really rolling. And we have like partner organizations like major orchestras, London Symphony Orchestra, and festivals like the Aldborough Festival, and I'm super happy with it, because it took off. And I think one of the things that I noticed was that people are actually really generous at the moment, and they want to be generous, because those of us that are fortunate enough to keep working, we have a bit of a survivor guilt complex. And so we're like, I want to do something, I want to help someone, but I don't know how. So when I created Momentum, everybody said yes. I mean, there was nobody that was like, no, I don't want to do this. You know, every leading artist was like, yes, please. I would like to be part of this. I want to, you know, do whatever I can to help the younger me.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's kind of it. It's like the younger you, and different opportunities, different time for you. In Canada, you made a leap overseas, I guess. Was it kind of like a one leap and then you were kind of there for good?
It was like a double hop, because I went first in 1994, 95 to study in Europe, and I ended up really getting my feet wet in The Hague, which is a good analogy because they're below sea level. I never made that analogy before. That's fun. But anyway, so that became a kind of starting point for me. And that's when I was engaged to do the writing to Vermeer production with Peter Greenaway and Louis Andriessen. So I started to work in that league, which was very interesting. But I returned to Canada, and I kind of had one foot in Toronto, because I was going to do my master's degree, which I did at U of T. And so I was kind of hopping back and forth a lot. And then finally in, I guess, around 2001, I really moved to Europe to stay. And that was Amsterdam for 20 years. And now it's been Paris for the last 5. So, yeah.
Probably not looking back.
Well, I mean, it's been wonderful for me, because my interest has been in my first interest has been in contemporary music. Mm-hmm. And the projects that I was able to do in Europe on the main stages, which would not probably be funded in Canada, at least not in the same way. I mean, that was pretty extraordinary, and has been, you know, being able to say to the Berlin Phil, I would like you to commission this Danish composer who you have not programmed in 20 years, and to write a 30-minute song cycle for soprano and orchestra with me, and to be able to suggest that and have them say yes was a pretty amazing thing. And the programming of contemporary music that doesn't matter where the composer is from, which I think is an issue that I'm quite interested in, because I don't think it should be limited only to Germany programs, German composers in the contemporary music realm, you know. And yeah, it's been pretty exciting for me. I think I've developed a kind of agency over the last years, which has helped me to do what I could do for contemporary music and for contemporary composers, and also for audiences.
I feel like replaying what you just said, because it's, you went to the Berlin Phil and said, can you commission this person to write a 30-minute piece for me in orchestra? And they said yes. Like that, I want to think that doesn't happen too often, which is an amazing feat for both the respect you have within the world of opera and music, but then also just the willingness they have. They have this thing where they almost say contemporary music is risky, which I don't believe. It just needs to be done. And often it's, you don't know who the composers are, you don't know who the music is, and you just need to be exposed to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't know what you're going to get, but there's trust. I mean, this whole business, I think I say this in every single conversation I have, this whole business is based on trust and relationship. And that is an omnidirectional kind of trust. It's trust between the audience and the performers. It's trust between the orchestra and the performers, and between the performers and the composers, and between the management and the talent, let's say. And I think that's so integral, because, and I mean the orchestral management, I don't mean artist management, because the artists need to have agency, and they need to have the strength and in a certain respect, the self-knowledge and ability to articulate that, to be able to invest their passion in the projects that excite them. Because you can really tell when an artist is not excited by a project. You can see it, you can see if a composer wrote a piece on a subject that they were forced to write on instead of what they really wanted to write on. And you can see if a singer is, or if a performer is kind of paired with someone that they don't really have that chemistry with. And you can see when they're paired with someone that is just their soulmate on the stage, And
I'm guessing I know the answer to this, but are you not choosy in a that kind of way, but are you very careful in sort of what projects you're involved in and what sort of work you choose to do? Meaning, is your work sort of tailored to who you are? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is. I mean, at the beginning, I did everything. Yeah. And I think that's the advice I would give to any singers, like, do everything, or to any young artists, just do everything and say yes to everything, because work leads to work, and you'll meet people, and you'll learn something from every single project, whether it's the best thing you ever did or not. But as I got older, I was able to really be pickier and say yes and no, and also to help create situations. So to say, I want to work with this composer, this conductor, this choreographer, this, like, or even to say, I would really love it if my partner in this production was this person, so you, little by little, you start to, if you want, and if you're investing in that kind of relationship building, I think you can it makes a very big difference, because the production hinges on the success of a production, and the chemistry hinges on so many things. So, I mean, in my case, like, I've returned to certain directors, or they've returned to me, and that's been really formative for me. Like Katie Mitchell and Sasha Waltz and Marthaler and Andreas Kriegenberg, and probably the most important director for me has been Krzysztof Arlikowski. And that's someone who, when I did my first production with him, which was Lulu, it was just changed my life, changed my life. There was a kind of zone that I would go into, and I still go into it. Every time I see him, we have projects in the future. We've done 4 operas together. And yeah, there's just a kind of something that he brings out in me that nobody else really has access to.
Well, those relationships, I want to say they're rare, and they need to be encouraged more, I feel, in young artists, whether they're finding people. I feel like in this time where the artist has a lot more power in what they choose to do. And I know it's a tough time where there's not a lot of work around the world happening right now, but this could be a moment where artists can really seize opportunity for themselves as best they can, as safe they can, but to work with people who they want to work, as opposed to waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people that wait for the phone to ring, and they want to be like that, and that does work to a certain extent. It's also about, I think, being true to yourself. Like, I'm not a wait for the phone to ring person. I'm a pick up the phone person and make some calls, and I will just keep going until I get that thing that I need to create what it is that I want to create. And but I think when I think about all the people that approach me for things, I do actually consider what they ask me. And so if you don't ask, you will not get. But if you do ask, you might, and that's so interesting, because I think about, like, if someone asks me for a project, I really look into them. I mean, I really look into them. I Google them, and I see what's possible. And sometimes, like yesterday, a choreographer asked me for a project. I really like her work. I wasn't aware of everything she had done. And I'm not actually free for the project she wants me to do, but I had some suggestions that maybe we'll end up working together in some way. You never know. But that's, again, about like being, like, reaching out and being engaged. And I think taking your own power, taking your own agency,
That's also very kind of you too. It'd probably be very easy to hit delete on the email.
Well, sometimes I get an email and I can tell it's a form letter and they just filled my name in the top. Then I'm not so interested.
Yeah.
But usually, if you can tell if somebody really is has taken the time. And so, yeah.
And is there a balance that you love between the conducting versus the performing? I guess it's kind of the same, kind of different though. And I guess conducting and performing at the same time, that's got to be, I don't know how many there are in the world who actually do that.
Not so many.
Not so many.
But yeah, the conducting and singing, the two things, I mean, it fluctuates between the seasons. Like, some years it's 50-50. When I first started out 10 years ago, I was only conducting maybe 20% of the time, of course, because I already had a full schedule as a singer. But in the last few years, actually, I've been conducting more than I have been singing. But that said, when I do an opera production, it's 6 or 7 weeks as a singer, which is great, because then I'm just in one place and, just singing. And I can be a little bit less, like this, literally. But and the conducting singing projects, yeah, I think that lends itself only to particular pieces, and because it has to dramaturgically make sense to me. I won't do it if it's possible. I'll do it because it has to be, or it has a convincing reason. Like La Voix Humaine, the opera by Poulenc with the text by Cocteau, it makes sense to me to conduct and sing it at the same time. It makes sense to me that she is controlling this situation, because I've always felt, and I actually sang La Voix Humaine in a production that Krzysztof Arlikowski and I created, and I always felt that she's not on the phone with her lover, that this is an imagined situation from an isolated person with a very large fantasy life.
I could totally see that. I've had conversations with a couple people where you're just like, are you being real or not?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And I remember when I sang La Voix Humaine in the Paris production with Arlikowski, I think we actually had a telephone, and we used it for the first 2 or 3 days of rehearsal, and then maybe not even that much, and then it was gone. We got rid of it. And I was against it from the beginning. He said, yeah, but we have to try it. We just have to try it. And I'm glad we tried, so that we knew we really didn't want it.
Yeah.
And then instead, the opening of that, it's interesting. I was walking down from the back of the stage, just straight forward. John Relier, Canadian, they were just finishing Bluebeard's Castle, and we did it, Attacca, Bluebeard, and La Voix Humaine. I was walking down from the back of the stage forward, and the music starts, and as soon as the phone rang, I fell down, like just flat on my face, and then lifted myself up onto all fours and started singing, "Allô, allô." I mean, and it was just like this is crazy. This is not La Voix Humaine that we all expect,
Yeah.
My boyfriend and I broke up.
And I think you can get that on Blu-ray now, or
yeah, it's on it, or I don't know, Blu-ray. It's on a DVD.
Yeah. Okay.
It was made into a DVD. Yeah. It's a really cool show. Bluebeard and La Voix Humaine together, and John headline. John is Bluebeard, and I actually show up at the beginning of Bluebeard, because we did it as a magician's act, and I was the magician's assistant at the very beginning of the show, and then I return later, and I was his assistant, and John and we would be backstage before the show opened, and we were more nervous about the magic act. I mean, we had a dove, we had a rabbit, I had to levitate. I mean, we had a real magician training us every day.
Really?
Yeah, it was the real deal. And he had to do these tricks, and I mean, that was nerve-wracking. Forget singing, the magic act with the scarves and the bunny and the dove, and it was crazy. Yeah, it was really cool.
All right, we all got to see this. This is incredible. Well, and again, I remember one time where Jose Cura, I think it was a double bill. He performed in the first act and then conducted the second act or something, which was amazing. How you have to, how it's very possible, but we just don't see it enough. So we need to be exposed to it to know that other things are possible.
Yeah, and I mean, Natalie Stutzman, the incredible contralto. I mean, Natalie wanted to be a conductor, and kind of basically wasn't allowed when she was younger. She was shut out of the conducting class. And so she had this extraordinary voice. And so she became a singer. And then kind of maybe 1 or 2 years earlier than I did, she started conducting. She formed her own orchestra. And she's mainly conducting and big stuff. I mean, she really loves to conduct Brahms and, the canon. And that's very cool because she's a singer, and that I think one of the things that we both share that we bring to orchestras is this sense of vocal line and breath that is so innate in us that it's unavoidable. It comes into everything that we conduct. So it's very cool. I admire her a lot. You can tell.
Yeah. I know I read all about it. I believe I was there too, but I've seen you conduct and sing at the TSO. Your relationship with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra is pretty tight, which is good. And then you're on the East Coast a little bit, but when do we get to see you perform? It'd be good to see you
in Canada. I was
Canada.
supposed to be in Toronto in January, and that was canceled because they canceled their season. We were supposed to do Copeland and Stravinsky and Haydn. So that was disappointing. And I think next season I'll be back with the TSO. I'm usually there every year.
Yeah.
And yeah, all my North American, actually the only things I had canceled this season were my work in North America. One concert in LA, or 2 concerts in LA, and 1 concert in New York, and my TSO concerts. And everything else has gone ahead in some shape or form. So I hope that I should be back next season with TSO as a conductor. And I think I'll also be there as just a singer, or maybe it's the following year. So, I'll be back.
Good. Well, I think you kind of highlight a little bit of how differently not we're handling COVID-19, but also just how different it is in North America versus, and maybe differently how funded the arts are, which is too bad, but glad that projects are going forward in some capacity and their artists are being supported a little bit differently on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, over here, it depends very much on what did the orchestra already have in place as far as streaming goes. Like Gothenburg Symphony in Sweden, and that's the National Orchestra of Sweden, and I'm their principal guest conductor. They have a streaming and camera system in place, just like the Berlin Philharmonic does, and they've had that in place for years. And so, besides radio, like that's, taking radio a step further. And I work with a lot of radio orchestras, and we have Arte in Europe, in Germany, and I mean, some of the streaming stuff that Arte or Mezzo are doing, it's so classy. It's incredible. I mean, and this has been going on for years, when Arte films something you're doing at Aix-en-Provence, or films a concert you're doing at the Maison of Radio France. I mean, the light is beautiful. The sound is beautiful. It's just glamorous. It's so, I'm still, every time I go on that channel, I think, God, the French are just so classy. It's so elegant the way they do things. And I hope that will become the case, to make it a possibility for Canadian orchestras to reach their audiences. And you can isolate, for example, say Toronto Symphony only wants to have their performance go to ticket sales, or they only want it to be shown for free within a certain region. They can do that. But the problem is, one of the problems is they can't get into the hall, because the hall won't open for them if they have if they don't have a certain number of audience. And I think also, of course, the regulations as to how many people are allowed to gather and for what reason. Because having 30 people walking down the aisles in a small shop is one thing, or in a restaurant, but having 30 people spread out across a stage who are incredibly, social distancing on stage, or 40 people, there's a lot of repertoire that can be done. And even, I mean, in Germany and in Sweden, we could have 65 players because the stages were large enough that we could do Mahler 4 and Bartok and, standard rep.
Well, it's amazing to hear technology being used, and I know it's being used in Europe for many years. And Berlin is a wonderful example of how they have that solved. And if anything good can come out of this, is that hopefully companies invest in sort of transition to do that well. And I think, like you said, classy. So it's not just, you know, we've experimented where you do your living room concerts, and that's nice for a little bit, but now it's kind of like, let's step up our game a little bit and kind of see what we can do and explore this to be able to share it beyond, for those who don't feel comfortable to come out right now or just can't physically be in the same city.
Well, I think we have to treat it like radio. And I mean, radio, you know, I grew up with radio. I lived in Waverly, Nova Scotia. We didn't go to the symphony orchestra concerts very often, but I was addicted to CBC and I listened to whatever was going. And now, you know, because of the internet, we have access to every radio station in the world. But with the possibilities of video streaming and so on, I think we need to treat the concerts also in that way, treat streaming like radio was. So there are some people that only want to hear, and there's some people that want the audio visual, and that's why we're here today. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of amazing when you think about it. So it's tough times around the world. It's great to hear that some things are going forward, but even then it's kind of like extremely difficult. And so art is not, what can we hope for, or what do you hope for in the arts out of this or through this? What's something we can look forward to or hope for?
I think the virus has shed a light and plus magnifying glass on a lot of issues that had to be addressed anyway. So I think in a way there's going to be some cleaning up, which is maybe good. I think many artists that I've spoken to have said that because of what has happened as a result of the pandemic, they only want to do what they must do passionately, you know, that they feel like, I cannot waste my art on anything that doesn't completely engage me. Now, on the other hand, other side of the coin, you could say, look, we have to pay our rent. We should take any gig we can to pay the rent. So it's like, you know, I know that people are in all different kinds of situations, but I have heard this, and that's very interesting, that the hunger to make sure that you're doing those things about which you feel completely in love, you know? And I mean, as far as what is there to be hopeful about? Well, the communion that comes with performance. And I think, you know, the other day I had a concert at Radio France and I was singing a piece with octet. And then the other piece on the program was the Schubert octet without voice, right? And I was sitting in the hall just to listen to my colleagues playing it and for the concert, which was just recorded. And it was breathtaking. And I mean, I've heard that piece before, you know, it's a wonderful piece, but I mean, this was just breathtaking. And yes, they were very good, but it was breathtaking because I realized I haven't been there for live performance. I saw them moving. I saw the clarinetist leading with his body to show something. I saw the first violin. She was so physically engaged in everything. And the communion between these players was just like, oh, wow. It was exhilarating. And I thought, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like live performance. Even watching it on a screen is not the same as being in the hall because you don't feel the risk factor. And it's that risk thing that, you know, this could all fall apart. It's like circus. It's like gladiators. It's like sport, you know, that's live performance. And I mean, I think all the advances in technology in the last 8 months are not going to go away. They're going to stay, and they're going to be hopefully used in really interesting ways. So that's something to be excited about. But I am very hopeful that live music and live classical music will stay. I think programming may become a little bit more adventurous because everything had to be so scaled down, and programs were like, you were just throwing one piece off the program and adding a new one, like in the space of, 24 hours. Right. Which is really cool because classical music moves so slow normally. It's just like, no, we can't change it. It's been set for a year, or it's been set for 3 years. We can't change it now. We can't take away 2 string desks. In the past, that's been a hard thing to negotiate. And now you can just change a piece and everybody just does it. It's a bit like we were when we were young, and except everybody's got to be able to change on a dime, which I find really exciting. And because there's room for, there's room for, what's the word? It's just for transformation and fast, which I love. You don't get told no as much. I mean, you do, but it's no.
My goodness, it is, it's been years wanting to be able to sit and chat with you. I'm glad, like you said, technology has been able to make that happen.
Yeah.
You're an incredible performer who, again, anyone just has to go on YouTube to kind of see the wide variety of performances that you are a part of, which are amazing. You're a champion of, Claude Vivier is someone who I came to know later, but I'm glad that you're singing his music and appreciate that. You're doing Canada very proud.
Vivier is one of my most beloved composers. And it's funny because I learned about him in Canada through array music and through the Esprit Orchestra. But then when I went to Holland, my mentor in Holland was a champion of Vivier as well. And so I was hearing all this Vivier in Europe, even more than I could have possibly heard in Canada. It was extraordinary. So that's magic music.
Yeah. Well, we hope you will come back to Canada soon. And
me too.
Good. And looking forward to the day one day. Who knows when we'll be able to collaborate together. But again, this is a good first to be able to chat about the arts and music. So thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. Thanks, Joel. It's been great to see you and meet you in this way.
Same. All right. Have a good night. And thank you for tuning in to watch this. We have more coming up. And again, please go check out our website for further ATG TV programming, including our Messiah Complex video, which is coming up. A Little Too Cozy digital prequel happens and is available. So please check that out as well. And looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Bye.